Chapter 641, Information from Eating. Lugano, who had been observing from the sidelines, was taken aback when Lumion handed the thin aluminum foil to Ludwig and inquired if he wanted to eat it. Despite Ludwig's previous display of abnormal eating habits, including drinking a tube of human blood in front of Lugano, revealing all the corresponding information, Lugano still harbored reservations about feeding Ludwig just anything, especially something as unconventional as aluminum foil. After all, Ludwig was still a child. In the blink of an eye, Lugano witnessed Ludwig silently accepting the old, thin aluminum foil, stuffing it into his mouth, chewing and swallowing. Lugano found himself in a daze. Once Ludwig finished consuming the aluminum foil, he calmly turned to Lumion and inquired, "Which details do you need information on the cocoa beans used, the precise quantity, additional ingredients, the origin of the aluminum foil ingredients, the production factories, or the individuals most in contact with it?" Lumion shook his head slowly. "No need." This information wouldn't help track down Hisoka. Hisoka had touched the thin aluminum foil while wearing gloves, leaving behind no corresponding personal details. The patrol team had already confirmed that the chocolate packaging was common in Port Pylos, and there was nothing distinctive about the taste. As Lumion responded, a mix of amusement and surprise washed over him. He can even extract such information from eating. As expected of a monster capable of recovering, just by eating and gradually breaking free from the seal's constraints. Ludwig seemed to relish the delicacy. After a few moments, he remarked, "The residual chocolate has a hint of depravity." Depravity? Could it be that Hisoka had carried it for an extended period, corrupting it? That doesn't make sense. Unless one was a demigod, Beyonder auras couldn't reach such a level. The only possibility was that they were on the brink of losing control, deep in a state of depravity. However, such a Beyonder's body would undoubtedly display various abnormal details. They wouldn't be able to leave the house. Stepping out would lead to discovery and pursuit by law enforcers. Could he rely on the human skin Bram mentioned for disguise? Lumion was initially puzzled, but then he asked with anticipation, "A decadent aura from the devil pathway." Ludwig licked his lips, savoring the taste of the chocolate residue. "Yes, at least a demon's." "Demons?" Lumion was taken aback and couldn't help but frown. Having extensively studied devilology, he knew that sequence 4 of the devil pathway was known as demon, representing a demigod. If the chocolate slightly tainted with a decadent aura came from a demon, it clearly didn't belong to Hisoka. Lumion wasn't arrogantly dismissing Hisoka's potential to have advanced to sequence 4. Instead, the aluminum foil and chocolate marks represented the state 4 years ago. Hisoka couldn't have been a demon back then, unless he had become a desire apostle upon transmigration. If that were the case, his targets for the serial murders should have been sequence 6 or 5 Beyonders. Although Beyonders at this level were rare in Matani, devilology didn't specify that serial murders could only occur in one location. "Are you cert?" Lumion looked at Ludwig for confirmation. Ludwig replied earnestly, "A demon's decadent aura has a completely different texture from low to mid-sequence devils." Upon hearing his godson's response, an image suddenly surfaced in Lumion's mind. Hisoka, standing within the wall of spirituality, engaged in a special ritual to establish a connection with a demon. Throughout this process, a few pieces of chocolate wrapped in thin aluminum foil remained in his pocket. They were slightly tainted by the decadent aura permeating the altar, subtly and silently transforming. "Yes, when I perform a ritual, I don't remove all my belongings in advance and leave them outside the altar, unless there's a specific mention in the ritual requirements that I should avoid." As a conspirer, Lumion quickly made a guess and asked Ludwig, "Can you tell which demon's decadent aura it belongs to?" Lumion's current idea was that if Hisoka couldn't be found in the future, he would exhaust his resources and seek the help of the new City of Silver's demon hunter experts. He would set up a ritual and summon the demon who had established a connection with Hisoka. He would have it beaten up before interrogating it for information about Hisoka. Ludwig shook his head. "I can't absorb such subtle information yet. All I know is that the decadent aura belongs to a family called Noise. Noise, one of the 3 devil families. The demon responding to Hisoka's special ritual is from the noise family? That's peculiar. How can a demon respond to a ritual remotely? It has to be at sequence 3 or even at the angel level. According to Devilology, serial killers can summon projections of abyss demons because those devils can use the special properties of the abyss to respond, not because they have reached the corresponding level. However, the noise family is a devil family active in the real world and hasn't entered the abyss. Lumion made many connections from the noise last name. He concluded by listing 3 possibilities. Firstly, the demon responding to the Hisoka ritual was none other than the noise family's angel. Secondly, it had reached sequence 3 and was located in Port Pylos near Hisoka. Thirdly, the noise family had a close connection to the abyss. They could borrow the abyss's properties to some extent. Even a demon could respond to prayers from afar. Lumion pondered for a moment and asked Ludwig, any other information? No, Ludwig replied, disappointing Lumion. Lumion handed over the remaining piece of aluminum foil. Try this one too. Ludwig didn't hesitate. Like many children drawn to the sweetness lingering on wrappers, he popped the thin foil stained with chocolate into his mouth and chewed. After a moment, while Lugano snapped back to reality, Ludwig looked at Lumion and remarked, there's more to this one. What kind of information? Lumion knew that Ludwig's special mention had to be of some value. Ludwig responded with the air of a connoisseur. This thin aluminum foil rested on a table marked by old blood and a splash of coffee. The blood belonged to a deceased male. The spirituality was initially potent, and the coffee was Fermo blend, unsweetened, distinctly bitter yet fragrant. Upon hearing Ludwig's account, Lumion's mind painted another vivid scene. A few pieces of chocolate wrapped in thin aluminum foil lay nonchalantly on a table, soaked in old blood and spilled coffee. They seemed to share an intimate connection for an extended period. Then, a hand reached out, snatched them up, and swiftly pocketed them before making a hasty exit. Connecting the dots, Lumion strongly suspected that the table had served Hisoka in a dwelling he once occupied. Do you have detailed information on the male deceased? Lumion probed Ludwig for more insights. Ludwig shook his head once more. No, unless I consume the blood directly. 1453. The bloodstains likely belonged to one of the victims, Lumion. Surmised, he pondered whether this information was documented in the case file or elsewhere. Was Hisoka using, no, unless I consume the blood directly? The bloodstains likely belonged to one of the victims, Lumion the table as an autopsy platform or perhaps an altar. Lumion mused inwardly, a tinge of disappointment clouding his thoughts. Nevertheless, he refocused his attention on the Fermo coffee. He mumbled to himself, does this mean that Hisoka has a penchant for coffee, specifically the Fermo blend from the Paz Valley? The Paz Valley, nestled in the southern continent, boasted the renowned Fermo coffee, comparable to Fana Potter's Highlander coffee and the southern continent's own version. It was a luxury enjoyed mainly by the middle class for extended periods. In Matani, where both East and West Balam produced high-quality coffee beans, such occurrences were rare. The locals had access to a plethora of excellent coffee beans. Those unfit for export were sold at affordable prices, favored by both colonists and natives. Lugano, now fully attentive, cautiously added, I've heard that those who frequent Fermo coffee appreciate its bitterness and fragrance. However, those who prefer it without sugar are a rare breed. In essence, Hisoka's unique taste in coffee is uncommon here. Lumion smiled at Ludwig and remarked, well done. If I apprehend the target in the future, I'll give him to you. When the time came, Lumion would likely be a sequence 5. Moreover, he wouldn't give Ludwig the beyonder characteristic. Lumion could ease his grip on the boy. Give the notion sent a chill down Lugano's spine, a hint that his imagination might have run too wild. To others, gifting a beyonder of the devil's pathway might relegate the recipient to a life of servitude or worse, becoming an ingredient. However, with Ludwig, Lugano involuntarily shuddered. He didn't dare to think about it. Ludwig nodded, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Lumion turned to Lugano and said, don't you have a good grasp of Dutanese? Check Port Pylos this afternoon and find out which shops sell Fermo coffee. It's preferable if it's one that has been operating for 4 to 5 years or longer. All right, Lugano suddenly felt a surge of usefulness. In the evening, he returned to Suite 7 at B3 and reported to Lumion, there are only 3 shops selling Fermo coffee. One is on Cania Street in Resurrection Square. You mentioned Cania Street in Resurrection Square, Lumion interjected. Yes, Unit 21 on that street. It's called Matani Import and Export Shop, Lugano confirmed. Lumion fell silent. Isn't it close to Port Pylos' patrol team? In Port Pylos, on the 3rd floor of the building housing the patrol team. Camus received the bounty and gave a 5th to his 2 companions. He then entered the telegraph room and inquired of the telegrapher, "Do you have a telegram for me?" He had previously sent a telegram to inquire with certain friends if they had any information on Louis Barry, the adventurer. Since they were in collaboration, he needed to ascertain the other party's situation first. The female telegrapher, wearing a sweet smile, straightened up and responded, "Yes, from Farim."